It was a scandal of epic proportions.
Child sex abuse committed by Jerry Sandusky.
Years of glory erased.
Horrific accounts of a Sandusky basement of horrors.
Penn State, where football is religion, exposed for the ultimate sin, protecting a monster. Former coach Jerry Sandusky.
There is no doubt. During his time as head football coach at Penn State University, Joe Paterno inspired thousands of young men to be better people, athletically, academically, and inspired them to make something of their lives after they no longer had the game to fall back on. It's one reason why he was considered a legend and a man with impeccable credentials as a leader. But we now know better, something different. Dating as far back to the 70s, Joe Paterno knew his assistant coach, Jerry Sandusky, was sexually assaulting young boys both on and off the Penn State campus, in and out of Penn State athletic facilities. And his response was more to cover it up, help make it all go away using payoffs. Instead of standing tall and doing what anybody would consider the right thing, stop the abuse, name the abuser, take the heat, rebuild a proud program. The fact Joe Paterno and the university administration allowed this to happen and stay hidden for decades needs to make us all wonder, could it be happening at other schools as we speak? And how many other so-called institutions of higher learning would do the same thing to protect their bank accounts? This and more without the mundane, commonplace scores. Welcome back to noted sports attorney and the man who invented the concept of covering and investigating the world of sports business, the sports professor from North Carolina tonight, Rick Horrow. Rick, you and I have talked about a lot of issues over the years, but this is the one I think that needs a real difficult examination in so many ways. Because when the evidence came out recently that Joe Paterno allegedly knew what had happened back into 2001, back into the 70s, back into the fact that he and the university paid people off, tried to protect the program. Rick, this boggles the mind in some ways, but it doesn't in other ways, because we know the millions, the hundreds of millions of dollars that are taken up at big schools like Penn State University and how they are trying to protect something that makes the money. But it's at the expense of a child. That's heinous.
A lot of issues here, and very well set up by you, by the way, and it is a very serious issue. First of all, it would be nice, frankly, for a lot of reasons, if he were still alive so he could get his day in court, good and bad. Second, we don't really know what he did, but we understood that covering up is worse in many cases than the crimes themselves. Third, Penn State consistently ranked in the top, in terms of the top 10 revenue-producing schools, well over $100 million a year annually, so we understand what the pressures are. But fourth, it could happen everywhere. And by the way, not just in football programs and not just in schools, every single kind of institution, obviously, we dare say the Catholic Church, and other institutions where the administrative controls aren't there. And then I do think, however, that Penn State has done an amazing job of rebuilding its brand after the tragedy is over. Should they pay for it? Of course. But Penn State seems to, because of Coach O'Brien and those that followed, be on the way to getting past a horrific scandal.
Would you not say, though, and I will agree that you have to take the heat, you've got to try and rebuild. But in the last couple of weeks, the current administration at Penn State University has blamed the media. They have blamed the reports coming out. This, to me, and this is a personal opinion, Rick, is despicable, because the media is reporting what's there. The alleged have been in there as well. Should not, whether it's Penn State or any other university, say, yes, let's accept the responsibility and move on, because there's a part of me, Rick, that says, had Joe Paterno back then said, Jerry, you're out. You're a friend, but you're a felon, and I'm going to kick you out. We're going to take the heat for a few years. This program will suffer. But here in 2016, this program would be right back to where it needed to be. All they needed to take was responsibility.
Well, yeah, and the bottom line of that, I'm sorry, it may be one of those issues that is very, very significant. We understand how important it is. The bottom line of it, though, is that media, when you blame the media, you tell me somebody that hasn't blamed the media, and it's a pretty lame excuse generally. So whenever anybody blames the media, you always look at your own house. And I do think Penn State has done a good job of trying to take the next step in their program specifically, but they obviously have a long, long, long way to go to rebuild the trust and character they had years ago.
All right, but let's look a little step further here and what I alluded to, which is college athletics. Multi-billions of dollars that are being spent right now. Basketball programs, football programs, whatever you want. This is not saying, and we are not intimating, that any other school in America has anything along the lines of this sort of criminality. But does this not lead us to believe and then start to investigate these other universities? Look, I go back to the days of Barry Switzer when he was covering up guys shooting off guns at the University of Oklahoma campus. We've had guys already and football players who have been accused of sexual assault. That has been covered up many times by universities. Don't we need to start asking about some sort of controls here, Rick? Because this is not just sports. This is crimes. These are felonies that are being committed against other people, and they're being covered up only for money.
Clearly, the Penn State thing is inexcusable, but I don't want to automatically leap to lack of institutional control for any university because they're all making more money than they used to. So there are a lot of coaches and administrators and athletic directors and presidents with character, some more than others, and we all understand that issue. And the NCAA does a very strict policy now about lack of institutional control. When do you know it? How do you know it? And when you cover up. And believe me, whether it's arbitrary or not, one of the things that the NCAA has done is penalize significantly for lack of institutional control. This is a little bit different. This is criminal. This is a felony for covering it up. And again, it's not just the sexual issues here, but a lot of other things come into play, as we said.
I have said personally, and I've said this as a commentary, that Penn State, the administration there, and the people who still try to cover this up, the fans, you need to look at yourself in a mirror real hard, because we're talking about the assault of children instead of getting rid of some football victories. You're off balance, folks. Let's get to something else for money here. This seeds me. I get so angry when I talk about this, but let's see if we can move on here. Let's talk about money of another kind here. McKinney, Texas. The voters there have given the go-ahead to spend nearly $63 million on building a high school football stadium after all sorts of contentious debate. Rick, $63 million to build a high school facility. Isn't this just show a little, things are out of whack here when we're talking about sports over academics and where that money could be spent?
Next thing you're going to know, we're going to see a $2 billion professional. Oh, we already have one.
Oh, we already have one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, we already have one of those. So listen.
But that's professional versus high school, and you know exactly what I'm talking about here. This is ridiculous.
I'm trying to make life difficult for you.
I know you are.
Easy to do. So listen, the bottom line is the voters spoke, okay, and we all understand, because I did this for years, how difficult it is to get public funding for facilities. I never have, in my own admission, seen a high school stadium on a referendum ballot. There are high school fields and athletic facilities as part of larger initiatives for parks and recreation. That's a different story. So this is a mini college and pro football facility. There's going to be skyboxes there. There's going to be a naming deal there. So all I can say is they do things a little differently down in Texas. Wouldn't you agree? I
agree they do things a little differently, and I will also add this, that if you spend $63 million and the people say spend it, and if you're still able to take care of the academics and the kids there and the education, that's fine. But I sure would like to see an audit of this down the road and see where this money might have gone and where the rest of the school system is, with $63 million being poured into something that is simply just a game.
And very quickly, though, let's remember that this is a school district that has the means to do a lot more as far as their after-school programs and otherwise. That's why one of the reasons why the voters said, well, this is not a luxury for us. We spend these dollars on other things, too. So
exactly.
I agree. Let's bring the audit in and let's see what it says.
I'd like to see where this is in 5 years. About 90 seconds left here. People that are in the know, doctors, World Health Organization, the Harvard Public Health Review is saying that the 2016 Olympics, because of the Zika disaster there, could spark a full-blown global health disaster. Rick, I know there's a lot of people already, a lot of athletes are thinking about not going. Do you think we'll get to a point because of this where national sports agencies, such as maybe even the USOC or others, will basically come out and say, we're not going. We're not going to put our people at risk?
Well, it's a very interesting couple of months now because all of the Olympic committees have the similar decision to make, and the evidence just isn't in yet. I understand that there's a lot of scary evidence. There's a lot of the evidence of what the consequences might be, but there's going to be a very heavy discussion of this over the next 6 to 7 weeks.
But do you think that there will be sports agencies, whether it's maybe track and field, whether it's maybe swimming, someone else like this? We've already talked about the sewage in the water that they're going to have to swim in there, but do you think that we will see governments, agencies, sport groups pull out because of the fear of Zika?
Well, again, we need to know a lot more about Zika before the fear causes it. I do know that most of the Olympic committees are saying it's individual choice. If athletes do want to pull out now, we're not going to stand in their way.
All right.
And of course, the next step. So we got a lot of information to get.
There you go. I'm all out of time. Thanks a lot, my friend. We'll talk to you again next week. The Hardline continues. Now this commercial endorsement. Dick Morris says President Obama has a much bigger plan to make us a one-party nation. Power Grab explains what the president's been up to. As you get ready for the 2016 election, be sure to get your copy of Dick Morris' best-selling book, Power Grab, available at bookstores everywhere. Just call the toll-free number or go online at the address on your screen to get your copy of Power Grab with this special offer. Claim it now. Call 800-953-1812 or go online to powergrab411.com.